Hello everyone and welcome back to another video, and here we have the HD 7970 Superposition 1080p Extreme World Record that's still not official. I uploaded another world record yesterday to HWBot, but this one is breaking that one by about 50 points, I think. And yeah, so the setup I did this with is this. So let's talk about that, because this is not the kind of setup you would expect to do world record scores, because this is just a Morpheus cooler and like no special sauce except for that. It's just a reference PCB 7970 that's slightly modded. You can see here there's some capacitors there, and there is a volt mod, but that's not you. Also there's I2C cables right here. Like this, the 7970 reference PCB doesn't have a conveniently placed hookup point for the EVC. You actually have to solder wires to that, so this is what this is. But I haven't used the EVC, I haven't used the volt mod. I don't even know if the capacitors are doing anything for this. But yeah, so I took the world record by a lot. And I still don't exactly know how I did it. This card, and also my 7950, this one down there, they just score really well in superposition. And I don't exactly know why. I have a suspicion. I think it might be due to my memory modded my modded memory timings. So, if you didn't know, you can modify the memory timings on select AMD and also some older NVIDIA cards, but mainly AMD cards, because the NVIDIA cards where it works are really old and I haven't messed with them yet. But so you can see here, so this card has Hynix 2 gigabit MFR, which you can see up here. The BIOS also supports LPDA 2 gigabit BBBG, but I don't have that on this card. I have this memory chip. And you can see how the memory timings for these two entries are the same. And I'm running the memory at 1600 MHz, which doesn't have an entry, it just, everything over 1500 just uses this entry. And I've set this entry to what is usually used at 1375 MHz. So basically we're running a set that's one level tighter than what we would be running normally. Some cards can even run 1250 timings. Usually Hynix MFR can't. Hynix AFR can usually, and usually the LPDA also can, at least on the one card that I have. I don't know for Samsung, I've never had a Tahiti Samsung card, so I can't tell you how well Samsung does, but usually it does pretty well, at least for like raw frequency. But yeah, so I have modded the memory timings, which is allowed. Like, that's not illegal or anything, you can do that. And yeah, and then I'm running almost 100 megahertz below the record. Let's just let's just hope it can pull up my. I can kind of pull up my profile. Yeah, this is an old score I did. Don't know why this shows up instead of my profile. So I uploaded this yesterday. So 2292. This is going up after this video. But yeah, so even this is still a world record, and you can see here, same setup. And yeah, I was just running lower core clock for this one. So even at 1250, I still beat. It's really annoying that you can't just right-click the score right here and like go to that, because I can only go to like Tractor's profile. So now I have to go here, wait for my really slow internet to load. And then we go here. And now I can take a look at Tractor's score. So you can already see that he is actually outclocking me significantly. but I'm just about beating him with like over 100 megahertz less on core and significantly less on memory. And he's chilled. I'm on air. So yeah, so his setup. So as far as I know, Tractor's one of those people who rely on extreme overkill on the side of their CPU to get scores. And that's probably why I was able to beat him, because Superposition is kinda what a GPU benchmark is supposed to be, because it's actually benchmarking the GPU, not the CPU. So in benchmarks like Firestrike or TimeSpy, your CPU is also tested. So if you have a CPU, like for example a 5950X at over 5 gigahertz, then your CPU score is just gonna be so high that just based off that, you're gonna be ahead of everyone else, even if your GPU is mediocre. In Superposition, your CPU doesn't matter. You can see when you run the benchmark, the CPU is idling at like 10 watts. It's not doing anything. So it's actually really just testing the GPU, which is good, because apparently modding the memory timings is worth a lot in this benchmark. So yeah. So I beat a almost 1400 megahertz core, almost 2 gigahertz memory, which I can beat this core with this card. This card does 1400 core on water, and when I stick it under the phase change, I don't know what can top out, but I'm expecting quite a lot. For the memory, I'm not sure. Like Hynix MFR, which I have on the card, is not the best. But it could totally be that when you cool the memory chips down a whole lot, that they scale a lot. Yeah, actually, I know for a fact that they do, because the I saw Lumi's score on the 7970 Lightning for a different benchmark, and as far as I know, those only use the earlier iteration of the 7970, which only came with MFR. And I think I straight up saw his card has MFR in a video he made, and he also has similar clocks on his memory with the card cold. So we can probably expect MFR to scale with cold. But yeah, so he had the card in a water loop and chilled that water loop. I just slapped a Morpheus on mine. It still kind of feels like cheating, just because of how much he's outclocking me. But so as far as I understand, Tractor just uses his CPU to carry him through a lot of benchmarks. So apparently he's not spending a whole lot of time, like he didn't even screw the card in. So apparently he's not spending a lot of time with the graphics card itself, and such in a benchmark like this, which only cares about the graphics card and your CPU cheese doesn't work, or RAM cheese doesn't work, I'm actually beating the card just by modding my memory timings, which probably he didn't. That's my speculation anyway. I don't really know what he's doing, but I can only say that my score is higher and my clocks are lower, so something else has to be going on. And we can... Well, I mean, yeah, this suggests he's still using MS Afterburner to set voltages, just like I am. He could totally be using an EVC as well, but... No, I don't see any EVC cables. No, actually, that could be an EVC cable. But it could also be something else. I'm not sure. Could also be a fan cable or something. But yeah. So, took the world record. Gonna extend my lead by quite some margin after this video. And yeah. Yeah, also one more thing. I don't know why it does that. It says right here that I'm using a 7990. No. This is a 7970. I don't know why it thinks that. Like that's a single core. 7990 is a dual GPU card. I don't know where it's grabbing that from. You can see right here. Single core card. Like, that's very obviously a reference 7970 PCB. No idea where it's grabbing that from. So, yeah. Anyway, is there anything more to say here? Other than Superposition really, really likes memory timing mods. I don't really know. Yeah, I think we can just talk about maybe future plans for the card and also the 7950. So I want to run both on cold using my phase change setup. Well, the 7950 is already insulated. I can basically just go with that one. This 7970 needs to be insulated still. Which is like why I'm doing this pre-testing. Because I don't want to insulate and put it on the phase change and then find out there's some problem with it. But, so like I just recently got into running Superposition. I mainly did Firestrike and maybe some 3D Mark 11 before. Which are tests, especially 3D Mark 11 and also Vantage are like tests where the CPU cheese works wonders. And me on an 8700K with CJR memory just kinda lose a lot of the time, even when I might, like, it could be the reverse. Like, basically I could clock my card like Tractor, but someone else is winning with a card like this. But for the reverse reason, because they have a much better CPU than I have in those other benchmarks. So Superposition is like reverse 3D Mark, because here it's really just your graphics card. And if you ask me if the same is true for Unigine Heaven and Valley, no, it's not. Those benchmarks are quite a bit older and they have a lot of tweaks and cheeses to them, and apparently you need a very, very good CPU for at least Heaven. From what I've seen. Like, I tried it and my scores were always super bad. And I see a lot of people just running them with, like, also chilled CPUs. But Superposition is fine. I like... So, where we are on the topic, 3D Mark has recently released, like, the CPU profile test, which is just a pure CPU test. Can you guys please do that for GPUs as well? Like, have a benchmark like Superposition that doesn't also test your CPU. And before you say Port Royal, first, that's a ray tracing test, so you can't use it on basically any card that normal people can afford. And also, Port Royal still cares about CPU somewhat. Like, from what I've heard, you still want to run a mainstream Intel CPU for it, with like basically a lot of single core. And like Ryzen's is supposed to not work as well with it, and you wanna run like an Intel mainstream, not an HDDT, because single core for Port Royal. So the CPU matters less than, say, Firestrike or Timespray, but it still matters. And yeah, but it doesn't. It doesn't in Superposition. It does not at all. And it would be really nice of the 3D Mark people to make a test like that. Because, like, when it's just the card that you are benching, it's so much more fun than if at the end of the day you see, oh, my score is low because that guy paid more money on a CPU and RAM kit. Or paid more money for, like, a newer platform than I did. Because, yeah, that's just no fun. Yeah, but anyway. So, I just recently got into running Superposition. Yeah, I paid the $20 for like the proper version, because with the free version you can't upload your scores, which is required. Like, you need this, and you can't upload your scores to the benchmarks.unigine.com website without owning at least the normal €20 license for Superposition. So I paid that. But, yeah. I think it's worth the money, like, because it's a very fun benchmark to run. Basically like GPU Pi, because that's also like, that's even less dependent, because that's literally only GPU core clock. It doesn't even care about VRAM. So basically GPU Pi is as close to a CPU frequency validation benchmark as you're gonna get for GPUs. But yeah, so since I only recently got into running this benchmark, I think I might rerun this card on water or something like that before I go to phase change, just to see how the scaling looks. Might also rerun some other cards in this before I get to phase change. But really, I'm just gonna do what I feel like. But yeah, so I don't really want to drag this video out any more than I already have. I've already went on 2 like side rambles. But yeah, so here's the new Superposition world record, still at under 1.3 gigahertz. I really feel bad for getting that. Like if you'd ask me, this core clock is slow. Like this is slow, and it's the world record by like quite a lot. Also that's kind of why I want to rerun this on water, because I know this card, I know this core can do 1400 on water. And I want to see what it does with that. Because that's like a really, really good 7970 core on this thing. Which might not look like it, because 1290, but like, we are still using the stock voltage limit, which you're not even getting 1.3 volts, you're getting like 1.25 actually, behind the core. So, yeah. Anyway, I said I don't want to drag this out anymore. So, thank you all for watching, hope you enjoyed, and until next time, goodbye.